All right, what's up, everyone? Uh, I'm Adam Gromatsky, and here with my partner Colby Kisis, and we're doing our presentation on Taiwan.
Hello, everyone. Let's get to business.
Dedication. We'd like to dedicate this to our parents. We wouldn't be here without you, so let's have a moment to shout out to all the moms and dads out there. So, for a quick overview on Taiwan and its trade, Taiwan maintains a trade surplus with some of the largest countries in the world, such as China and the United States. The main exports from Taiwan are electrical components, machinery components, computers, and refined petroleum. And in 2019, Taiwanese exports totaled 388 billion US dollars. Of these, the primary export is electrical components, specifically semiconductors and advanced semiconductor chips. Taiwan really has a monopoly on the manufacturing of semiconductors and chips. They manufacture 65% of the world's semiconductors, and nearly 90% of the advanced chips are made in Taiwan. And most of these chips come from the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, or TSMC. It's the largest company in Taiwan and the largest producer of semiconductors. It's responsible for producing 55% of all the world's semiconductors, and electronic devices from such companies like Apple, Intel, and Huawei all use the semiconductor chips that are manufactured in Taiwan by the TSMC.
Going into the major foreign policy relationship, some things we wanted to highlight is going in depth into the United Nations. So Taiwan, also known as the Republic of China, ROC, was one of the founding members of the United Nations and was one of the 5 permanent seats on the UN Security Council. And in 1971, the UN recognized the People's Republic of China as having control of China's seat to the United States nations. Taiwan was then removed from the UN on October 25th, 1971. Since then, since the UN has observed the PRC's one China policy, in which only mainland China is recognized as a country, Taiwan does not currently have a seat in the UN. And like we mentioned, only 13 UN members recognize Taiwan, and about 59 countries, including India, have established unofficial diplomatic relations with it. Taiwan is an independent nation without a seat in the UN. The main hindrance to it being given full UN membership is China, September 23rd, 2022.
So, one of the main points for international relations involving Taiwan is the Taiwan Strait, which is the waterway between Taiwan and mainland China. Taiwan considers the strait to be an international waterway, but mainland China claims that they have sovereign control over the strait, which, since the civil war between the Communist Party and the Republic of China in 1949, this has led to several crises involving the strait. The first big crisis was the 1958 Taiwan Strait crisis, when the Chinese Navy began shelling the islands of Taiwan, began shelling some of the outer islands of Taiwan, which were located near mainland China. They also attempted to invade the island, but Taiwan managed to repel the forces. And while the United States didn't get involved directly, the United States did sell arms such as missiles and jets to Taiwan, which allowed Taiwan to have air superiority over the strait during the conflict. However, mainland China did continue to shell the outer islands until 1979, when US and Chinese relations improved. The third Taiwan Strait crisis was the most recent crisis involving the Taiwan Strait. In 1995, the Taiwanese president campaigned on reducing Chinese influence on Taiwanese politics as part of his campaign for the 1996 Taiwan presidential election. China responded to this by testing missiles in the waters around Taiwan. Again, the US didn't get directly involved, but the Navy sent 2 aircraft carrier battle groups to the Taiwan Strait. So while the US didn't get involved militarily, this did show that we were willing to get involved in the future and that we were able to respond quickly in the event of a future conflict. And in present day, China routinely sends ships and aircraft that violate Taiwan's air defense zone, and Chinese fishing vessels continue to operate outside of China's exclusive economic zone in the international waters of the Taiwan Strait.
Moving into the next slide, we're talking about foreign direct investment. As we learned in international relations, foreign direct investment is a key metric to always be looking at in any country. Taiwan averaged around $500 million from 1996 until 2022, eventually reaching an all-time high of $4.4 billion in June of 2022 and a record low of $81 million in February of 2003. Some strong points on why there's so much foreign direct investment into Taiwan is a couple points I'd like to bring up. First of all, is the research and development opportunity. Taiwan has a large industrial base, being, for example, the fourth largest electronics producer in the world. And this being mean that has major research and development capacity. And there's a lot of cheap labor that they have there. So major opportunities to scale and manufacture things. And it's also kind of in that sweet spot in between Europe and China. And also the US isn't fully involved, doesn't have to be fully involved with China to get manufacturing done. They can go to Taiwan. Some weak points is the lack of direct channel of communication with mainland China, although there is the pros of not having to work with China. So there's still that pro and con to it. And then the lack of diversity in the economy, the low competitiveness of the severe sectors, for example, and also the reduced size of the domestic market, which considerably limits local opportunities. And overall, Taiwan is a top destination for supply chains and higher value added manufacturing, including electronics and semiconductors, like we mentioned. And the Taiwanese government actively promotes FDI with investment friendly policies. As a result, the economy continues to be a withdrawal for foreign investors. In 2021, Taiwan received $5.4 billion of inbound foreign direct investment versus $9.6 billion 5 years earlier, a decrease of 43%, and real GDP grew by 6.2%. We believe this is because other people are outsourcing to India and other countries, maybe because of litigation between China and Taiwan, and nobody wants to get involved in that.
All right, moving on to some core data on the economy. In 2019, the GDP for Taiwan was 611 billion US dollars. GDP per capita was 24,502 US dollars. And most recently, for the year of 2022, real GDP had a growth rate of 3%, and there was inflation growth of 2.7%. The top trading partners for Taiwan are mainland China, and while there is some animosity between Taiwan and mainland China, we believe that China is the top trading partner just because of how close they are located geographically. Mainland China makes up for 28.2% of Taiwan's total exports, worth 126 billion US dollars. The second top trading partner for Taiwan is the United States, where 14.7% of all exports go. That's equivalent to 65.9 billion US dollars. And right behind that is Hong Kong with $63.1 billion worth of exports going there. Also significant trading partners are Japan, Singapore, South Korea, Vietnam, and Malaysia. This year, military expenditures made up for 2.2% of Taiwan's GDP. And moving on to wealth distribution and spending. In 2021, the household income for the top 20% of income earners was 6.15 times that of the bottom 20%. And this was greater than the 6.13 times in 2020. And it's also the largest income inequality in Taiwan in 10 years. So there's definitely some significant income inequality in Taiwan. Total household spending was around 7.27 trillion new Taiwan dollars, which is equivalent to 236 billion US dollars. And this was a 1.1% increase from the previous year. Also, average household spending was 815,000 new Taiwan dollars, which is equivalent to around 26,500 US dollars. And that's flat. It's remained unchanged from 2020 to 2021, which is when the most recent data is from.
Moving forward with core data on life. So we've learned a couple interesting metrics. One of them being the majority is living in between the 25 and 50-year-old population at 45%. And the other majority of the population is divided between 65 plus year olds, 55 to 64, 15 to 24, and 1 through 15. And life expectancy at birth is one of the most important demographic indicators. It shows the number of years a newborn infant would live, assuming that birth and death rates remain low at the same time. So the total life expectancy at birth for Taiwan is 80 years. So that is a solid amount of time, which was surprising to us. I think we were estimating about 65 due to the potential harsh labor conditions. Something interesting that stuck out to us was how the females are expected to live 7 years, about 7 years longer than men. We thought this is because men are going to be taking those more extreme labor conditions and having the females take the easier jobs potentially. The current population is 24 million people, and the males are taking up a little bit less than the females, but the population is pretty divided from male to females. And there's 200,000 births year to date, 400 births today, 157,000 deaths year to date, 369 deaths today, and the net migration year to date. I thought this was going to be a lot more, but they're only estimating it at 1,300 and then a couple per day. And then population growth year to date is 40,000 and population growth today is 100. So the average family size is 2.67 in 2020. And this is also a very surprising metric, especially because China has played such a huge role here. So we're expecting them to have to enforce the one child policy, but this is not the case. This is the one child policy times 2.5. And the most common country of origin of the foreign born population is Indonesian taking up 32%, Vietnam taking up 30%, and Philippines taking up 19%.
All right, so living standards. So our key points is that this year the monthly wage and basic hourly wage will increase. Uh, because on the first of this year, the authorities of Taiwan adjusted the minimum wage, so it'll increase to the basic hourly wage will increase to 168 new Taiwan dollars an hour, and the basic monthly wage will increase to 25,250 new Taiwan dollars an hour. And in terms of how much that changed from last year, the monthly wage increased $1,250 from 24,000 last year to 25,250 new Taiwan dollar this year. And the hourly wage increased $8 from 160 new Taiwan dollars last year to $168 this year. And this change is actually expected to impact over 2 million workers in Taiwan. So for monthly costs, uh, for a family of four without excluding rent, the monthly costs are 2,700 US dollars, which is 83,458 new Taiwan. And a single person's estimated monthly living costs without rent are 739 US dollars, which is 22,615 new Taiwan dollars. So the cost on living in Taiwan is, on average, it's about a quarter lower than the United States, 24.39% to be exact. And rent in Taiwan is much lower than in the United States. It's 67.65% lower. And I believe Colby wants to talk about the picture that's up here.
Yes, so I want to include this to show retrospect of how strong the US dollar is and how you could get a beachfront Airbnb for $65 a night. That's 2 bedroom, which really goes to show you the state of equality and wealth inside Taiwan. She.
Thanks, Shishi.